Hello, and a very warm welcome from the 4th Asia Pacific Feminist Forum, which is taking place here in Chiang Mai on a very promising theme of feminist world building, creative energies, and collective journeys. We are honored to have with us today NALINI Singh, a human rights activist and executive director at Fiji Women's Rights Movement. Welcome, NALINI.
Thank you so much, Shobhna.
Nalini, what are the unique challenges faced by Pacific countries and where do they stand in terms of achieving social and gender justice?
Thank you so much for the question. It's a very pertinent one that we have been grappling with ourselves from the Pacific. So when we, say the Pacific, the first images or the first thoughts would be around the climate crisis. Yes, that's very true. But before that, we have the unfortunate scenario where gender-based violence prevalence rates are extremely high. It's in fact highest in the world, in our region, where we see 2 in 3 women who have faced violence in their lifetime. So that for us foremostly is a great area of concern. And we have the same issues around looking at women in leadership, women in our parliaments. We are unfortunately at the moment at the lowest rank in terms of the IPU ranking for women in parliaments. That's also a real issue of concern for us. We are also facing many health-related issues, and our indicators, especially around sexual and reproductive health and rights, are not doing well. We have very high rates of adolescent pregnancies, high rates of, I would say, or lower uptake of contraceptives, high rates of reproductive cancers, very high rates of NCDs as well. And if you look at it from a gender justice, women's empowerment point of view, overall, I would say we're not doing very well. We have a region that is grappling with the sort of the impacts of what is happening globally, and that how that trickles down into the Pacific as well. In relation to the wars. For example, between Russia and Ukraine, and the impact of that on availability of goods in our countries, price of fuel extremely high, and we see all of this featuring at the same time as we see the climate crisis amplifying. As well as globally, a decline, or so, or should I say, a unfortunate decline in terms of support for, rights, human rights, and gender. So that's a scenario in the Pacific for us.
And since you're talking of sexual and reproductive health and rights, and adolescent pregnancies, and what about the abortion laws there? I'm just curious to know because we are going to have Safe Abortion Day in this month.
So in Fiji, like most of the countries in the Pacific, we have laws that are allow for abortion within certain circumstances, and it has to be sort of signed off by medical professions. And so if it is within those parameters, then it's allowable. But if you're talking about open access, of course, that is not at the moment available across the Pacific. There could be. I'm not quite familiar with all the countries' laws, but we could have some countries that have very restrictive laws.
And the problems you're talking of, Nalini, Many of them are being faced by women across other Asia Pacific Asian countries as well. And the problem seems to be escalating. So, what needs to be done to more to break out of this marginalization faced by women and also people of diverse genders?
So, we need to have collective actions like the ones we are having here at the fourth Asia Pacific Feminist Forum. We need to have a stronger feminist movement that calls for and drives for the transformative change we want to see. For example, we're at Beijing plus 30 years from Beijing. The life of that document was for 20 years. We have not achieved it. We have moved on to another 10 years, and now we're at a 30-year anniversary of an agenda that was meant to uplift women out of historical violations that they have faced, out of the injustice they have been facing for such a long time. However, we see that we haven't achieved that. So this year marks the pivotal year of examining why haven't we? And I think if you apply the basic feminist lensing to it, we'll figure it out that patriarchy is all pervasive and getting stronger with the way in which neoliberal economics, globalization, the way in which men are wielding power with militarism, and the way in which that is colluding with religion and faith, and coming up with really fundamentalist ideas which often are designed to control women and their bodies. So to counter all of that, we need to have a women's movement, feminist movement that is strong enough to put up the countermeasures. There still is hope that, as we move forward, that, if we vote more women into parliament, that, women will be able to shift some of, these indicators, these parameters that we are talking about into a more progressive, more equal in equal ways. So that could be one of the moves that we could be moving on, as a stronger women's movement. And that's one of the things that we are beginning to do in the Pacific. We are realizing that so many things have happened. For example, the way in which resources come into our region. We don't have the kinds of funding support that we need. There's been intergenerational change. The knowledge hasn't been passed through. Our education systems haven't kept up with what needs to be taught. We have gatekeeping, unfortunately, by the older feminists and the senior ones in the movement. There's the climate crisis and everything that we need to be tackling right now. So amongst all of these things, what we are finding is that the movement has suffered nationally as well as regionally. So in the Pacific, that's what we are doing. We are, trying to reach out to as many countries as we can to say, hey, let's regroup. Let's build the knowledge again. Let's figure out what's going on and come to the same table, same mats, and have these discussions. Because if we don't, then the future is really bleak for us, and no one can individually create the kind of transformative change that we need right now. We need to do it collectively. So that's what we are doing, and the road ahead, of course, is very difficult, and perhaps less traveled on. But that's what we need to do, and that's why, I spent 2 days traveling to come here with my colleagues as well. Who are coming from many different countries, with the firm belief that we must contribute to this and we must take back what we can, so that we also do this back in our homes and back in our region, because the fight for equality and gender justice is a big one, and it needs everyone's efforts.
What does the theme? It's a very, very interesting and invigorating theme for this conference and for this 3-day meet. What does it mean to you, and what would it mean to the people and women of Fiji?
Well, I was fortunate enough to be part of the organizing committee for the forum. So, I was part of the group that came up with this theme. And we were, as a group, thinking about, the last few years that we've had. And with the COVID pandemic, we realized that the movement has suffered a lot. We were isolated. We were, women as a group naturally would like to come together and sit on the same table on the mat, around a cup of tea or coffee or a meal, and we talk about substantive things and come up with solutions. And here we were meeting over the computer, at all different hours. We, had to grapple with the more burden that was put on all of us in terms of unpaid care work at home. And, in fact, I'm sure there was, violence in many homes and all of that. So in those years, our reality, our world was transformed. And we had to, for this particular space, with this convening, give it a theme so that it invigorates us, and it moves us into thinking about, hey, we have just experienced something really traumatic. And we talked about it, today in the plenary, in terms of the key themes that we work on. But, the next 2 days are going to be looking at forward, what like tomorrow I'm moderating the plenary of, what change we want. And that's all about what are we aspiring for, what are we dreaming of. And the next day, the following day is going to be about, well, how do we action that, because for us, this is integrally linked to, well, how will our future be, and what do we want to leave behind as our legacies. So as now a senior in the movement, I'm thinking a lot more about, well, what does that mean, working in the areas of social justice. What does it mean in terms of what legacies I'm leaving behind? Not for personal glorification, but it's for the next generations to take forward. And I'm hoping that, we don't have to go to Beijing plus 40, because, that is going to be a complete injustice to half the population of the world, that, we set out commitments for uplifting the lives of half the population of the world, and we still have not done it. And why haven't we done it? It's for some very, very selfish reasons why that has happened.
Thank you very much, Nalini. Thank you for your time and echoing the voices of so many of us women, whether they are living in the Pacific or any other part of Asia particularly, and maybe other part of the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you.